So it's set, change orders.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All of you are here live, and all of you who are not here live, but are with us nonetheless. We welcome all of you. Is there a difference between being live here in the audience or watching live at home, as so many are doing? Generally, you can make an argument that there is no difference. But tonight there is a difference, because after this event, there's a little reception with some desserts in the lobby. So those of you who are at home, it's still not late, too late to zoom into your cars and get on down here. We want to thank the sponsors of the reception this evening, Larry and Marion Hornstein, who are dedicating this to memorialize the yard site, the memory of their parents, Earl and Beatrice Hornstein. And really, what a nice thing to do. We thank you. When we put together this lecture series, a 4-week lecture series, it was being dedicated to topics of interest that have been part of my rabbinate here for 40 years. And it wasn't really hard to pick the topics. Politics. I mean, I've been a political junkie all of my life. And so we had Senator Cardin to discuss that with. Israel, you know how I feel about the state of Israel, how proud I am that our synagogue is the leading congregation in the sale of Israel bonds. So we had a wonderful time with a Gordis who was really outstanding in his presentation. And next week, we're going to discuss the future of the American Jewish community, the future of Beth Tefillah, with Rabbi Posner and Dr. Shore. This week is a little bit out of the ordinary, because the reality is that for most of my years here as Rabbi of Beth Tefillah, social action was not my thing. I have no problem testing on animals. If I were a woman, I would love wearing furs. For me, climate change can be usually cured by air conditioning. And quite honestly, I even cheat on recycling my garbage. While recognizing the importance of caring for the world and others, I've always been guided by the words of Hillel: if I am not for myself, who will be? We Jews are only 15 million in a world of 8 billion. So first and foremost, I've always taught that we've got to take care of our own. And then Terris King walked into my life, and nothing has been the same since. It was a chance happening. We got together under the misconception that his church building was the former home of Beth Tefillah, but that was not the case. Our former home was down the block on Garrison Boulevard. But Dr. King and I got to talking, and we've been talking and doing ever since. This is not social action. This is human relations. This is genuine brotherhood. Reverend Terris King is the senior pastor of Liberty Grace Church of God, the director of the Grace Foundation, and a retired federal government senior executive. He has a doctorate from Towson University. He is the former director and client executive of AT&T and held an important position in the Department of Health and Human Services. And he needed me to help him open doors in our community. Why is that? Let's find out. I'm really honored and thrilled to present my dear, dear friend, Reverend Terris King.
Good evening, good evening. I really want to hurry and get past this speech so that Mitchell and I can do what we normally do, which is talk to each other, try to tell jokes to one another, maybe in the process, learn something from one another. I am absolutely honored to be here tonight. Thank you for inviting me to the Bethel family. To Rabbi Hosner, congratulations. I'm so happy for you, sincerely. It's just a great opportunity to be here with my friend. So on tonight, I came with no notes. As I understood it from Mitchell, what we would talk about tonight is race relations in America. And if I needed notes to talk about race relations, come on, there's a problem. There's a real problem. How do I feel? Where are things? What's my barometer? Well, I guess I'd leave you with 3 points, and then I'll take my leave and be glad to field questions from Mitchell and hopefully from some of you tonight. One, we are unquestionably at a challenging time in terms of race relations. For the past 4 years, without question, cultural differences have been strained. Not only by politics, but quite honestly by horrors that we've seen. I think the death of the murder of George Floyd, without question, coming into our living rooms, played on a loop, desensitizing us to human agony, brought close and personal for many of us the challenges. Certainly for all of us as well, the shooting in Pittsburgh and the horrors we've seen in synagogue tell us that things are not only off kilter here in America, but I've said over the past couple of years and heard Mitchell talk about issues abroad as well. The challenges are obvious in terms of race. But I try to be an eternal optimist. At the same time that I see the challenges, I look at what we face with optimism. Because what we see has opened up a real opportunity. An opportunity for models like the one being created between Bethel and Liberty Grace. How many places in our country do Baptist ministers born in inner cities across America have conversations with Orthodox Jews? It's a rarity. I think how we got here, what we have accomplished, the maturity of this relationship in terms of where we are now, and the fact that we can sit down tonight and talk about some things that may be a little more sensitive than we have in the past, says how we've grown together. Now here's my goal for tonight. I set the goal before I came. One, when I leave here, Mitchell's still gonna be my friend. We may disagree, but what has been proven over the past several years, through our ups and our downs together, through learning together, is that our friendship is really essential. Dr. Phil, I thank you for inviting me once again, and I appreciate the opportunity to have a dialogue.
I don't really know where to begin, so maybe we could first touch on global issues and then get down to the nitty-gritty. All right. Global issues these days, from the perspective of the Jewish community, there's a gap in understanding in the Black community exactly where we are coming from, most certainly in regard to the state of Israel. There are many Jews who are supportive of the concept of Black Lives Matter. But then they read that Black Lives Matter is basically anti-Israel. And to most of us, that's all Blacks.
Mhm.
We don't know who's who and what's what. We speak of AOC and her squad. That's the Black community.
Mm.
There's a representative, Terris, in New York who is extremely pro-Israel, a Black. We never talk about it. To us, the Blacks are fabricated. Is that true?
Mm.
Are the Blacks anti-Israel?
Mm.
Does he really speak for the African-American community?
So let me look at this and talk about this a couple of ways. First of all, I have to tell you, the organization of Black Lives Matter to most in my congregation, we have little or no concept about what the organization, who the leaders, none of that. What their policies or position. Let me start with what we know. And what we know is where I began in looking at my grandson. We know that it's an absolute travesty for me to have to say my Black life matters too. That my grandson's life matters too. Pull back for a moment. Before we look at individuals in an organization, we look at the movement. The movement, we understand. We understand the context of the movement. Because the movement was brought on by us continuously seeing Black men on our TV screens murdered by racist police officers, shot in the back, killed in the paddy wagon, running from the police, sitting in your car, knee on the neck. At some point, as a people, we screamed, our lives matter too. That's as far as 99% of African Americans go. That's it. I mean, that is the beginning and the end. It's when I get up and look in the mirror, my life, of course it matters. I shouldn't, it's an insult that I have to say that. Now, the movement and the slogan, we embrace it. Now, to understand, because knowing you as my friend, it's important to Jews now, for me, Jewish issue. I can't believe on my phone, I have 3 books about Jews on my phone that I'm listening to. Because now I want to be sensitive to your issues. So I see where leadership in Black Lives Matter has made statements relating to Israel and Palestine and apartheid treatment. This is an aha to me. It's a wake-up call to me of something that I'm completely unaware of. So if you ask me the question, do Blacks embrace these far-reaching perspectives that you talk about, we're not even thinking about that. We look at what the Nation of Islam has done around the development of African-American men, whether in prison or on the street, and we say, hey, that's good. We embrace that. We look at the issues of what Black Lives Matter has said as a movement and a slogan, we embrace that. But everything else, Mitchell, we don't have time to think about it. With you, if it's wrong, I've been trained in my head to always hear the voice of those that are marginalized. And when people say they are offended by something, believe them. So if you say, and I read that things said about Jews as it relates to Black Lives Matter are offensive, I believe it. And I support you in opposition to that. But as it relates to Black Lives Matter, oh yes, I do.
You know, that's it. We don't really know what the other one is thinking. The one thing, the most important thing I learned from you, I have no idea what it means to be Black in America.
I understand.
Zip,
Right.
nothing.
Right.
We had your church choir sing in our synagogue. I had people come over to me afterwards with tears in their eyes. It was the first time they thought of Black kids not as criminals. Last week, there was a big article in the Washington Post about a typical Black kid. He hadn't been in school for the last 355 days because of the pandemic. I don't know anybody like that. The littlest story you told me blew my mind. I happened to repeat, I took my grandson for a haircut today. And you know, we were talking about tonight and he still remembers.
You do that too?
Yeah.
You take your grandson for haircuts too? I do that every other week. Isn't that something? He's got a pop-up day.
One second. You get a haircut?
Yeah, my grandson.
Oh.
Go ahead.
No, how old is my grandson? 15? Almost 15 years. And we were talking about tonight, and said, he still remembers when you were over at the sukkah, so on and so forth. I said, hey, we have no idea what I've learned from this guy. Now, listen to the story I told him. One of the little things,
Okay.
well, I'm going to say typical Black woman, whatever that means. A grandmother, she goes shopping in the market in your neighborhood. She walks out of the store. She's carrying 2 shopping bags of food. She's going to the bus. She has to get onto the bus, takes the bus, gets off near her house, and then walks her house with the shopping bag. I don't know anybody who does that. I don't know anybody who does that. I don't know of schools that don't have the internet that we've dealt with. Or kids who have to go someplace to use somebody else's Wi-Fi.
I get it.
They're starting off with a disadvantage that I don't even know exists. And I thought I knew. I knew nothing.
And on this end, one of the greatest challenges from where I sit is to not only understand that woman, that person who lives in what's called a food desert. I hate to use the word desert as if it naturally exists, but to also make a connection with people who look like me, who don't know anyone like that either, or at least pretend that they don't. Don't think for a moment that my greatest challenge and struggle is one of my greatest growth experiences has been meeting you from a completely different culture. But part of my greatest struggle is with people like myself who have letters behind their name, who have six-figure incomes, and who live in big homes and try to pretend that African Americans who don't have what they have are less than they are, who really don't understand that you're one police car stop away, that you're one lost job away from being trapped in the same systemic racist position that those people you describe. Now that's my struggle.
You see, and my struggle is we've gone to foundations and the hospitals.
Wow.
You with your doctorate,
Yeah.
and you with the head of Medicare
Yeah.
and Blue Cross and Blue Shield meant nothing.
That's right. That's right. And you really know why, Mitchell? It would have meant something if you would have, see, part of the issue that we struggle within my race is being here tonight for me. Because individuals will look at this and say, reaching across cultures is selling out. Because we need to do it alone. We don't need to have relationships with those Jews. We don't need to have relationships with whites, period. That is so far from historical fact. We have always, I have on my living room wall, thanks to my wife, a painting of Harriet Tubman, freeing blacks from slavery. Who do you think had the Underground Railroad? Where were the homes that they were hiding? It was white people that were helping them get away from slavery. We have always had alliances with good white people. This is nothing new. It's just wedge issues that we choose to magnify have kept us apart.
Yeah, well, people always say, you know, let them pick themselves up by their bootstraps the way we did.
Sure, I get that.
Do you know the difference between growing up as a Jewish immigrant in 1910 and as being a black growing up in America in 1910? That Jewish immigrant was coming into a support system, the homes for the aged, and HIAS and community centers and hospitals and a strong family basis. What was that black kid coming in?
That's exactly
But
right.
nobody thinks of
Nobody
it.
thinks about that. And even today, they say, well, come on, bring it up to today. There are still laws, rules, spoken and unspoken, that redline my people. Blacks move in, giant food moves out. Blacks move in, police protection moves out. If you want to see the differences in our world, I tell you where you go. Just go to Park Heights and Northern Parkway and look on this side of Park Heights and look on that side of Park Heights, and the difference is glaring. The difference is glaring. So it's not like all of a sudden today a light switch has hit. You and I know what we saw when we walked into those hospitals together. Sometimes when you're up so close to a bird cage, you can't see, you say that bird is in there, why won't he just fly? Why won't he leave? But when you back up and see that there are bars around, you realize you went in there to places where you rank. And you still, because of the company you keep, were able to leverage the resources. We know it wasn't an accident.
No.
And that's the growth experience for both of us. Because I naively thought, if I got Mitchell with me, they're gonna roll over. I'm qualified, he's connected. That's the perfect combination, isn't it? I'm qualified and you can't get more connected, Rabbi Posner, than the rabbi of Beth the Philip. Are you kidding me?
No, not just any rabbi.
I'm also qualified and you're connected.
Yeah, before becoming rabbi of Beth the Philip, I was a rabbi in Washington, D.C. And for several years, we lived in what was really a full integrated neighborhood. Most of it, I would call it upper middle class neighborhood, the Shepherd Park area. And we had a very nice relationship with everybody on the block. I don't know. Didn't know them, and they didn't know. The black kids loved me.
Okay.
They loved me because when I used to be in Washington, the cemeteries are far away from the funeral home. So when I would do a funeral, they would drive me home in the hearse. I would sleep in the back. We'll talk a little bit about that on the way. And when the hearse used to drive up to my house, and they opened the back and they pulled me out.
You were a rock star.
Your rabbi's back, your rabbi's back. But that's the bottom line. We lived right next door. And we had absolutely no idea of who the other is. No idea whatsoever. And when I was really hit with this, which really kicked off a lot of this, was when they had the riots here in Baltimore, in Sandtown.
Sure.
That Saturday, I taught a class to our Bar Mitzvah kids. And those are 13-year-old boys and girls and everything. And I asked them if they knew where Sandtown was. Not a single one had ever heard of it. Their parents grew up in it. Ask them where the Towson Mall is. They know. But Sandtown is much closer. No, it's in a different planet.
Well, it's amazing you mentioned the riots, because The murder of Freddie Gray changed me. Because what I described earlier in terms of a class-centric individual was exactly what I was. I spent my weekdays as an executive at CMS, and my care for the community was isolated to those two people sitting right there in the congregation of immigrants. That's as far as it went. I did not know the neighbors next door to my church. And I had no interest in the lives of those in my community. My concern was only them and my family. So I ran from pulpit to executive suite. And at the time of the murder of Freddie Gray, I was working at AT&T, making so much money that my wife and I could not believe where our lives had found themselves.
Oh, you're not married to a Jewish woman? Married to a Jewish woman.
I had retired and I was making all this money. And I said, there's gotta be more than this. And so we started giving food. Remember that? We started serving the community. I started to learn my neighbors. I'm a recent convert to the movement of caring for others that you do not know. That's where my life has been more fulfilled since that occurred than ever before. And that's the reason I walked into your office. Because I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to create community within my culture. And this is where I've seen it among the Jewish people. I've never seen in my eyes a Jew fall so far that I knew who he or she was sleeping on a park bench. I want to teach my people how to work that dollar within our community again and again and again. I want us to stick together, argue together, love one another. I'm trying to copy you, man. That's exactly what I'm trying. When I came to you, you thought
to copy. Could you stand up for a minute?
Yeah, okay, we can do this.
Come on.
Yes.
Is life fair?
So that's really what this is about. And I think in many ways, the growth has gone both ways. Because I'm taking not just finance, but a sense of community back to my congregation. That is what's happening. They are sick of hearing community. They can't tell you a Sunday since we met that they don't hear about community. Because I really don't care about entertaining them anymore. I want to do God's will. That's what I'm here for. And that's what you've taught.
And that you've brought out in me first. And I want to say something. You've brought it out in our congregation also. The response, the receptivity of the congregation to getting to know each other has been so gratifying and so satisfying. I know that there are people out there in the congregation, in any congregation, who are racist.
That's right.
For lack of a better term.
That's right.
but they're afraid to open their mouths. Otherwise, the responsible people, when we had, we did a luncheon together, our congregation and the church. The
I knew you were going there.
On Thursday night. We did this luncheon on Saturday morning. And you know how much I knew about your culture. I thought they were colored green.
You really thought that? You can't blame the guy.
What is the guy from Brooklyn know?
That's good. You know that's good.
But it was on the plain, simple level, and there was such receptivity from my congregation, and so real.
I tell you what, those Jews were tearing up those color greens.
No. The Southern Fried Chicken, I know Jews, this was like Jewish night of Popeyes.
I'm telling you, that was absolutely outstanding.
You see, and that's not social action.
That's right, that's
No,
right.
this isn't the project. This is just finding out who's living next door to you.
That's right.
And having a relationship with them. And can I be of help, or can I borrow some sugar? And that's the,
He's a human being.
every synagogue and every church just develop this relationship. No projects, no.
That's right, that's right, that's right.
Change the world.
That's right, that's right.
But you should know that we met this past week with representatives of the church and the synagogue, and we are planning to do more together, to bring us together and to see where we can be of mutual help in helping each other. Business connections, social connections. It's our neighbors. That's all it is, nothing more and nothing less.
And I think the way we went at this, slowly, we built this through trusting and understanding. I mean, when you two popped up in my church that first Sunday, let me tell you, my security guy said, it's a rabbi and a Maserati in the church.
So he went out and bought a pole.
But what that did is once you checked me out, and once I had a chance to be around you all, and we began to slowly, and we realized he's not after anything. I'm not looking for a check. I'm really looking for friendship and fellowship. And once we hit that accord and realized that equals have come together.
Absolutely.
And people who come from cultures who have experienced pain. Come on.
Still.
Come on. And I'm going to tell you what did it. When you got up in Liberty Grace's pulpit and started quoting David, speaking in Yiddish, and my folks started realizing, oh, this man is talking something we understand. Mm-hmm. We could feel that he was our friend. So
the bottom line is we just want to make the world like the two of us, and everything else will fall into place. And it's just a matter of meeting each other as equals.
That's it.
It's as simple as all that. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
This is wonderful, and I think that when the church came to show, it's wonderful, and everything love, it's a mentoring congregation, and we're great. I'm thinking about the younger generation. We had a school here, filled with kids. My kids graduated 8 years ago, did one program, Blues, Blacks, and Jews, and I thought, this should be something consistent because they are young. I think my daughter, one of the young men from the Western High School, daughter, a young black boy, asked her to dance. And people, and I want to be chosen. And I'm like, this is the only exposure they have.
The question that is being raised is a question of how can we do more to educate our children and to bring our children together. You should know that Terris's son is a top flight educator. In fact, spent 4 years in China as an educator, so certainly knows the world and is now bringing that expertise to Baltimore. And our school is going to be planning and working together to just bring the kids together, just as let's hang
And
out.
one of the things that started earlier that he was able to do was to create the walking tour of our area. Of course, pandemic has put a lot of that on hold, but 2 kids, one of our kids, as a matter of fact, the process was led by Beth the kids and Liberty Grace kids to create an application of a walking tour that takes folks past your former synagogue and includes that whole area, building on the needs of community, both communities, using technology and anything with the screen that draws kids to it, and connecting these 2 schools together. Our school, for the first time, 4 churches, based on my son developing from the ground up, had a program working with Baltimore City Public Schools to help kids advance and make up for the lost time based on COVID. So the experience is there, the relationships are there, and I think you're spot on in terms of questions about bringing the younger generations together to have conversations. So thank you for that.
Yes. I'm having difficulty hearing you. Okay.
There you go.
So, that's the fact. So, the president says, it's not open. And I think this is not how do you talk to your patient?
Can't catch the phone.
Come on down.
Wait, you want to come and speak from the microphone here? Yes.
2 topics I'm interested in your opinion. One is critical race theory, specifically educational settings, and reparations.
So on the first one,
Please repeat the question.
Yes.
so he asked me my
Terris is-
perspective on critical race theory. That's the main reparations. So on critical race theory, I had the opportunity during my doctorate to study and become a critical race theorist. Let's understand what it really is, and not the wedge issue that has been brought between cultures. Because right now, anything that relates to what happened factually in history is labeled as critical race. So if you show any negativity as it relates to, so who enslaved blacks? I guess they enslaved themselves. Because if you say they were enslaved by whites, kids will get offended because that's critical race theory. So that can't be taught because the kids feel offended. That's not critical race theory. What critical race theory really is it says what my life experience has taught me. that systemically America is a racist system. That there are things built into the American system that are systemically racist. But it doesn't stop there. It goes on to say that the story, we should tell our own story culture. That African Americans should not embrace who they are from someone else's perspective. Of course I don't. Of course I don't think of who I am and what I am based on how you may view me. Of course, that's ridiculous. You don't see who you are from the eyes of a stranger. Who would do that? Then it goes on to say, now the way you move this process forward is if you can find a way, and there are, where your perspective and interest links with those who may be culturally different, may even be discriminatory or racist, but you can come together and find rationale to move things forward in the same direction, maybe for a different reason. That should be your focus. Find out what makes that fella or that lady happy. I did it every day as an executive in the federal government. Every day, even if culturally I was different, and I was. Being the only senior executive in that headquarters building in Baltimore who was Black, I often had to find a way to mesh my policies with people who were not only white, but they were racist. But I had to find a way to get it done. And that's what critical race theory is about. It is a theory taught not even at the graduate level in law school only, but often those in law or who are achieving PhDs. I didn't learn about critical race theory until I was becoming a scientific doctor. That's the level I was operating on. So for people to be asking and really talking about this at this level tells me they don't know what they're talking about. Not when 7% of the, look at the population, number of people who have PhDs. They don't know, they haven't studied this. It's been used as a wedge issue to divide cultures. So reparations. Reparations can come in many forms. Do I believe in reparations? Sure I do. Has America paid reparations out before? Sure they have. Is reparations some kind of giveaway for people that are undeserving? No. We've paid reparations before. How it should occur is the issue. It's not just about dropping checks into someone's pocket, but how could I not be about reparations? We can't run the race and allow everyone else. Wait a minute. You want to talk about reparations? The Homestead Act is reparations. When white men got to ride through the Midwest and drop a flag and say for free, this land is mine, that's reparations. You want to talk about reparations in this country? Reparations is when you move into a blackness. What's happening in Baltimore right now? Slowly, when you take the same land and you move people out of that neighborhood, gentrification, and all of a sudden, the same house that this sister may have lived in that was worth $30,000 becomes a $300,000 house because the complexion of the people has changed. And then they want to flip it and turn back to people like me and act like you're giving me something. I tell you what you give me, a break. Give me a break. The fact that I'm sitting here with this doctor, the fact that I have achieved what I have, I should have been the president of the United States twice based on how hard I had to work to get there. Yes, I believe in reparations. And yes, critical race theory This is a systemically racist country. It's racist against me and it's racist against you.
I'm not sure about racist against us.
You know, here's what I've never seen though. It may not be racist. I wish there was a word that Blacks could embrace that was just ours, like anti-Semitic. I wish we had our own. I wish we had our own word. Because the racist word we gotta share with everyone, you know? We gotta share it with browns, Asians, that's everybody, you know? And with Jews, you're absolutely right, Mitchell. But here's what I do know. I have never seen a person who hated a Jew that didn't also hate me. I've never seen a person who hated, it's a package deal. We are in this together.
There are haters. There are people who are haters.
That's absolutely right.
I think the difference between the attitude of, again, the typical American towards Jews and Blacks is Jews they hate because we've been so successful.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
speaking about that this Saturday.
Yes.
And Blacks they consider just inferior.
That's
You know,
exactly right.
You told me you're reading the book, The World Loves Dead Jews.
Dead Jews, yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm reading that.
Yeah.
That's my bedtime reading. Can you believe that?
And I'm reading How to Be Black. It's crazy. But I was thinking when you sent me that text that about us, the world hates, the world loves dead
Jews.
And I said a counterpart to that could be, and the world hates live Blacks.
Lord knows that's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, now that we solved that problem. Let's go on to gender issues.
Yeah. Please don't go there. So, the back.
Yeah, go ahead, somebody's.
One of the disparities that disturbs me greatly in education is not from the county to the city, but from the county to the county. I just worked at one high school for 9 years, and what is it that was for each student that one? My son and my daughter attended Harvard. They have so many books that students should have, one for school and one from home. How can the county work with make believe that schools that are filled with white children aren't more important to them than schools that are filled with black girls?
I really think that part of this is what I talked about earlier. I think that line that's really unreal between Baltimore and Baltimore County. Look, you can't tell me that certain parts of Woodlawn and Lockhurn and Randallstown isn't West Baltimore. Come on. I may not know a lot of things, but I know West Baltimore. Born there, raised there, I know the atmosphere. And I could feel when my neighborhood changed. I could feel West Baltimore in parts of Randallstown. And it is. And it's that color line. Now, I think the current county executive understands and is seeing what you see. I think it's imperative to do what you will see or hear about 2 Sundays from now. We are purposely pulling into Liberty Grace a close friend of mine and his congregation from Baltimore County. The African Americans in Baltimore County need to gain a louder voice, a demanding voice. What happens too often, Mitchell, we run to the county to escape ourselves. And guess what happens when we get there? We're still Black.
You know what else happens to, you know what else happens to Wohlberg? I don't know what the hell you're talking about. That there's an issue, Randallstown, Lock Raven, Blacks, City, County.
What is this? I get it.
This isn't in the same state or country I'm in.
Right. And that is a part of why I want to bring him to gain. I don't want to be selfish with the access and familiarity and growth with another culture. I want my brother, come on, those of like mind, come on, those of covenant agreement, come on, understand, these people won't bite you. Understand, we're in this together, not just with the Jews, but with the Blacks who are in the city, some who are struggling, some who are not. But we gotta help each other. And their voice is not there. And that's part of the problem. They're not making that demand. Yes. Do never mistake positions for power. Never mistake, just because a person, we have a Black whatever. Don't go there. See what they're doing. See what they're about. See what they're committed to. Many times we're placed in positions to give you that answer that you gave, so that they can say, how could we possibly be discriminatory? We've got a Black guy in this job. See what they do, no matter what color they are. And you just said, enough is not being done.
Let me just take this as an opportunity. A week from Sunday, that's November the 14th.
Yes.
Is Brotherhood Unity Day at the Liberty Grace Church. And our congregation, and you'll be receiving invitations, is invited to join.
Absolutely.
And I will be speaking, and I love going to church. Well, no, I want to tell you something. Let me conclude with this, because I already wrote this out to say next week. When I grew up, it was in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. There was a church across the street. There was a church.
Mhm.
When we Jewish kids used to walk past the church, we used to cross the street because we were afraid that the priests and nuns would kidnap us and convert us. And now I call Terris my best friend. And we're all capable of that. Just have to reach out to our better selves. You all have a great evening here.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
We do have a dessert reception. We thank the Hornstons once again. It's just a beautiful gesture. All of you join us again next Wednesday night when I confront Rabbi Posner, that's not so bad, and Dr. Shore, and we discuss our future together. You all have a great evening. Thanks so much.